Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman. We'll start first by confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear, and we can hear them. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans? Come back to him. Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Biswas?
Yes.
Ms. Kojavos?
Yes.
Mr. Berger?
Yes, Mr. Berger.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. And let's see, I know on the agenda we have the first one would be Oak Street. It's Wennerstrom. Can you just confirm that you can hear us?
Yes, I can.
And Mr. Snyder, I believe you're on that as well.
Yes, I am. Hi.
Okay, perfect. So good evening. It's 7:04 p.m. This open meeting of the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the legislative acts of 2021, Chapter 20, Section 20, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is convening via Zoom video conference as posted on the meeting agenda, which can be found on the Town of Grafton website. Please see the meeting agenda for details on how to participate remotely. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording of this meeting, and that the recording may be published or rebroadcast at a later date. This meeting will feature public comment. To request acknowledgement to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The meeting administrator will enable you to speak when it's your turn. For those on the phone exclusively, we'll coordinate with the meeting administrator to allow you to speak and identify yourself. And each vote taken during this meeting will be done by a roll call vote. So, let's see
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I believe you need to appoint Peter Adams of Matilla in Bill's absence to start the hearing on this particular case.
All right. So I believe Mr. Adams, you were appointed last time, I believe. Although Latali, I'm not sure if.
I'm here. I'm just keeping my video off because I have my son with me.
Okay. Let's go with Mr. Adams this time, just in case you have to bounce out.
Thanks. I apologize and thank you.
No problem. All right. So for case number 881, we'll appoint Mr. Adams as a voting member. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to read the rules of order, the procedures for this hearing. So the way we'll proceed this evening is that the clerk will read the petition, and then the petitioner will have the opportunity to present their case. The petitioner will have 15 minutes to present. The petitioner shall present the required information, and all comments should be specific. The opposition, if there is any, will also have 15 minutes to speak. These time limits will be extended only with the consent of the board. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to the petition will then have an opportunity to do so. Letters received in favor of or in opposition to the petition will be read into the meeting record. If you wish to speak, state your name and address for the record. The board may ask questions from time to time. However, all conversations should be directed through the chair. After all evidence is presented, the board will enter into discussion and render a decision. At any time during this hearing, or at any time prior to a decision being made by this board, the petitioner has the option to request that the petition be withdrawn without prejudice or continued until a later date, at which time the petitioner could provide additional information favorable to the petitioner. Ms. Reed, could you please read the petition for case number 881?
The Grafton Board of Appeals has received a petition from Erica Winterstrom for 25 Oak Street requesting that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant a variance to allow construction of a 16-foot by 40-foot in-ground swimming pool at an SFD in an RMF zone, where a 30-foot side setback is required and the pool would be 26 feet off the side setback. Looking for 4 feet of relief. Map 65, Lot 3. The board will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, February 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in Conference Room A at the Municipal Center, 30 Province Room, Grafton, Mass. 01519. Zoning Board of Appeals, Brian Waller, Chairman, Marianne DeRosiers, Vice Chairman, Kay Reed, Clerk, William Yeomans, Member, William McCusker, Member, Peter Adams, Alternate, and Matali Biswas, Alternate.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to open the public hearing for case number 881.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. So the motion's passed. We'll open the public hearing on case number 881. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Wennerstrom to present your case.
Great, thank you. I do want to note that there have been slight changes to the plan from when I submitted the documentation, and I'll explain what has changed. So the original plan that I had in hand when I submitted the case had us looking for 4 feet of relief on one side, I believe on both sides. The pool location has been moved slightly, so it's looking to be 21.4 feet from one side, 28.4 from the other. And essentially what has changed is the landscape designer has been able to come in and look at the grade of the land. There's a pretty significant grade between the garage and where the house ends. And so to place it as centered as possible while also trying to comply with the rear setback would essentially make it economic. There'd be an economic hardship, and the grade or the retaining wall would have to exceed probably 4 feet. So the landscape designer worked within the grade of the land as well as best he could, the setback requirements that are required because I'm in the RMF zone to come up with this location.
And Katrina, were you showing the revised plan?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Can you guys see? Were you guys able to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put it back on. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
And I have with me my pool builder. The landscape designer was unable to attend. He had another commitment. But Eddie Snyder from Snyder Pools, who's also been out looking at my location and working with the landscape designer to come up with a location that would, again, do our best to accommodate the setback requirements. There's just not enough across the width to get 30 feet and fit the pool. So there was no way within my space to be able to fully comply. But again, we shifted it a little bit to also take into consideration the grade that we're working with.
And what is the slope in the back, or the grade? You know, is there a?
I don't have anything that says that specifically. I do know Mr. Adams was kind enough to come and take a look so he could speak to it visually. And I can certainly do my best to try to find any pictures right now or to share. I would say it's fairly steep towards where the garage and the porch, the end of the deck is. And then the original submitment, the original proposal we submitted actually had the pool pushed back a fair bit further because it does start to level out about halfway, I would say halfway backwards through the yard. But we moved it forward again to at least accommodate the rear setback. I am not,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah, I don't work with grade, so I have no idea how to speak to what the actual grade is back there, though.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, yes, the topography, it's 366. It drops about to 350 down on the back corner of the lot. So there is a fairly steep grade going out in that whole area, which includes this yard.
Okay. So it seems like it's steeper closer to the house, and then it sort of levels off as you go towards the back.
Yes,
Correct.
and it levels, it doesn't just go front to back, it goes left from garage to right, which is why the placement is slightly closer to the Douglas property than the Souza property, because it flattens out as you go right to left a little bit as well. I'm not sure if there's anything, Eddie, that you would add, or if I did an
Well-
adequate job explaining.
Yes, yeah, if you will, as Erica stated, you know, having with that steep slope coming off of the deck behind the garage, we all knew that there would be a retaining wall needed to, as we dig and subgrade and cut and fill from the high side to the low side to get a level area and to accommodate some patio. A wall on the house side, deck, garage, if you will, was needed, and hence the position of this pool running perpendicular to the back of the house. You know, running the pool parallel to the back with the slope, obviously, with that large grade, does become quite cost prohibitive, in the need for multiple walls rather than just the one wall on the high side. You know, we're talking about perhaps a 3-foot wall on the high side, and then we can level out on the lower side to achieve some level grading for the pool patio and the pool itself. Yeah, it's really it's a tight spot, obviously. It's basically the only position in which the pool could be installed without running some really high costs for retaining walls, basically horseshoeing the pool itself.
And what type of pool is this?
This is a one-piece fiberglass pool.
And where would the pool equipment be located?
The pool equipment's a little TBD. I think we were probably looking to locate it by the deck, underneath the lower side of the deck.
So basically directly off the back of the house?
Correct. The other alternate potential proposed area we could do something behind the garage there at the bottom of the slope.
Are there any questions from the board? Or actually, but before we do that, was there anything else you wanted to add, Ms. Wennerstrom or Mr. Snyder?
Not on my end.
No, I think it pretty much covers the you know, the layout and what we're hoping to achieve here.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
The plan, if you took that proposed pool area, and the pool is 16 by 40, and you just turned it so it's in line, you know, it's just turned rather than going across the lot. It comes in closer to the deck area, and your length would be going down into the yard. It would eliminate the need for any variance on either side.
That's correct, sir. As I stated, by doing so, you're running that 40-foot length along the entire grade, the grade drop. So now you're dealing with, instead of a grade difference of perhaps 4 feet within the width of the 16 as proposed, you're now running that grade difference along that full 40-foot. Now that grade difference perhaps is more like 12 feet. Hence the need. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Now, is that grade difference on the left or on the right?
So it primarily runs here, sloping down towards the rear and the back left-hand corner. If I'm correct, am I correct in saying that, Eric?
Looking at it, it runs towards the back right-hand corner where it says DHFND.
Okay. And we also fall into an issue with the rear variance, you know, with the rear setbacks by running it the long way. Due to the, you know, we do have to have at least that 20 some odd feet proximity from the deck due to significant pitch and elevation coming off of that back deck.
And from a safety perspective, I feel more comfortable with it pressed back because I don't want my son getting any ideas of jumping off the deck or the garage. So I like placing it far away from some of the structures is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or feedback from the board?
Oh, there you go.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Rogers.
Not to sound harsh or anything, but if you built the 16 by 30-foot pool, you probably wouldn't need a variance, correct?
That's probably true, but I understand that I'm in a residential multifamily zone, but this is an 1850s house, single family that has been this way for some time. And until I depart this world, will stay that way. I intend to retire here in Grafton. And so, you know, the way I'm looking at it, I hope that it can be recognized that essentially I'm working with a single family zone that happens to have these other setback requirements. And what I'm proposing is well within the limits of more traditional single family setback requirements, because that is the property use and that's the property use of all of my abutters.
No,
Mr. Chairman? Oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mary
Bill.
Ann,
go ahead.
Go ahead if you wanted to
Go.
finish your thought, Mary Ann.
Oh, I'm just, you know, the zoning, you know, the variance criteria is for, yes, you have some, you know, issues with topography that could be construed as a hardship, but I mean, to me, it seems like the hardship is more of a financial one. And if you were to, you know, build within the requirements, you would have the additional cost of retaining walls and whatnot. So it just, I'm having trouble, you know, reconciling the fact that, you know, if you built a smaller pool, you probably would need a variance, and we don't just give these variances out, you know, without significant consideration to the requirements.
Understood.
Hardship.
Yeah, understood. Honestly, when I undertook this, this is all I'm learning as I go. I assumed that I was subject to, as did the pool builder, as many folks did, just traditional single family setbacks. And, you know, even when I went in with the first version of the plan, it got a once over and looked good. So I've gotten pretty far down this process with the assumption that I'm well within the setback requirements, and only as of late discovered that. And, you know, the ideal outcome would be to continue with the plan that I've been pursuing since last fall. Again, given that it still has pretty significant clearance from both side neighbors, especially relative to the setback requirements for a single family home.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on the setbacks. This particular side of Oak Street is residential multifamily. Across the street, it's R40. It is all the same as far as the size of the lots. If you look at it, I think, Katrina has a map showing across the street, the setback requirements are 15 feet. It's R40. Why this is our residential multifamily, which requires 30-foot side setbacks. It seems to be in conflict with the regular neighborhood. So there are multifamilies down lower on Providence Road, but all of the particular surrounding area is really, it's all the same residential, except that she happens to be on the side that is residential multifamily, which I think is something that is kind of an odd, to me, it's an odd configuration of the zoning as it was created. And as she stated, this house has been there. It's an older house, so it was prior to its pre-existing non-conforming. There's no question about that. So, the only question I had was, as I looked at it, and I said, if it was across the street, it's a 15-foot setback. That whole area in yellow is R40, and she happens to be in the residential multifamily. And that whole section, I've always looked at that because I had looked at a house there at one time. And if you look at that whole section, you say, what, where was the logic in creating that? So, and that's something we can't determine, but I don't think it's an unreasonable request. I do understand the logic of if you turn it around, because I had looked at it and thought the same thing. If I didn't think of the smaller size, as Mr. DeRosa has pointed out, as being a solution to it. But, I've had pools, and a 20 by 40, a 16 by 40 pool is a much more enjoyable size, for the long term. So I think I think there is a hardship there. The hardship exists with the land. I think it's a hardship that's unique to that side of the road with the setbacks, when the whole surrounding area is a similar build out.
That's interesting. Ms. Wennerstrom, do you know, are either of your neighbors on either side, or either of those multifamily?
No. The only multifamily near here is on Providence Road behind me. So there's a property, I think it's 3-4 houses down, that goes back and stretches behind me. So there's a buffer of woods behind me, and then right through that, one area of multifamily. But other than that, it's all single family. There is one thing on Oak Place that seems to perhaps be multifamily.
Right there.
Yeah, but not like a large multifamily residence like what's on Providence Road. It's really what's in that 14A is the only true multifamily apartment development near me.
I was thinking more of just two family.
Not even, there are some two family, I think, over on Sartell Road, but looks very much in character with, it's, I think, one I can think of. I live predominantly in what feels is single-family residences.
Mhm.
There is large swaths of land obviously behind me, so perhaps that's why it was zoned that way. And I do know, and heard this again through Mr. Adams, that there was the prior owners of that land did look to try to develop that, but it didn't happen. And now it's been a single family, a woman living there for probably 5-6 years now. So even that one place that could have ended up multifamily seems pretty solidly single family.
Mhm.
There was a house about 3 houses up, and they had a pretty big side yard that they tried to sell when the father passed away. And it was so steep. And it was even steeper than her backyard. And they, as far as I know, it never sold. And let's face it, if they could have put condos in there, they would have. Somebody would have bought it for condos because it's zoned for that. But I don't think this side of the road will ever be developed for residential multifamily. It's just too steep. It's hard to work. Too hard to work.
Mhm. So you're talking about 17 Oak Street, it looks like.
Yes.
Everything her pool guy said is absolutely correct. They're going to need a wall right where it says porch to get down to the area where this pool would go. If they could buy water that wouldn't self-level, it wouldn't probably be a big problem, but we haven't got to that yet. Bill, you said it was R40 across the street, or was it R20?
No, it's R40.
You're sure?
I'll hold on just a minute while I look it up.
I mean,
Trina, just hit one of the lots across the street. It'll pull up.
I looked it up and I thought it was R20 because it was.
It's unfortunate that it all has to be
It is
yellow.
R20.
It is
Oh,
20.
it's R20, excuse me.
R20.
You notice how up the street from her there's R20. They should have kept that going maybe a couple of 100 feet back all the way to Brigham Hill Road and had the rest residential multifamily. But that's, like everybody said, the lots are all pretty small here. I don't think we'll ever see condos in here. Her hardship is she lives in an RF zone with big setbacks. And I think topography is a big hardship in this case. And I had asked her about putting it closer to the deck because I could see myself jumping off that deck into the pool. She told me she didn't want her son doing that.
So I think what I'm struggling with is the hardship. So we had, it would cost more to do it within, the side setbacks. But usually that type of financial impact to the owner wouldn't be considered a hardship.
Can I make another comment? I haven't done sort of all the math, but to turn it so that it's going the lengthwise going backwards and stick with the 50 feet, then you're bringing the pool very close to the house, which again, I think it's a realistic concern to not have it within jumping distance of a garage that's there, of a deck that's there. So for me, having some safe distance between all the structures and where the pool begins is something to consider. And I think I would violate that. If we turn it, then we have to start to worry about the rear setback.
That's true. You're left with 16 feet. If you turn the pool, the pool to meet the rear setback would be 16 feet, only 16 feet off of the deck.
Any comments or questions from anyone else on the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Rogan.
I'm struggling with the hardship as well. I mean, after being on the board for a while and listening to Bill McCusker school us about how these hardships need to exist strictly related to land, not because the pool isn't enjoyable and not because I'm in a unfortunate zoning area. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's what the law says. And I'm struggling with, financial hardship doesn't rise to the level of related strictly to the land. That's how I feel. I mean, I feel for them. I mean, I grew up with a 20 by 40 pool, but I don't think my parents had to get a variance for it. We were lucky enough to have it fit where we were having. So I understand. I totally empathize, but I don't know. Do we have a lot of leeway with what, the criteria to grant a variance on whether or not the pool should be 20 by 40 or 16 by 30? I'm not sure. I am struggling with that.
Can I ask a question? So I understand the reason for setbacks, and I would imagine that, of course, they're going to be different from multifamily, but knowing that this is a single family use, I'm struggling to understand why, simply because of the location, it needs to be so far out of accordance with what the regulations are for other single family use.
I'm assuming it's because you're not in an R40, you're in a mixed use or multifamily residential zone, multifamily zoning. So, I mean,
I understand that it is coming down to sort of that arbitrary based on the zoning, but particularly
I don't think
the land.
zoning is a hardship, though. I'm sorry, I don't think zoning is a hardship, according to the criteria for granting a variance. I struggle with. I empathize with you, but there have been numerous people that have come here with, extremely reasonable requests, and they just didn't rise to the level of the criteria in granting a variance, and we had to deny the request. So I'm.
What are the opportunities to request a rezoning of the land? Because per Mr. Yeoman's comment, the zoning of the land seems very arbitrary and not in keeping with the use of the land.
I'm not sure on how the bylaws are, reworked. I think that would be a Board of Selectmen issue. I'm not sure if a resident can request a zoning change. I would have to research that.
Mr. Yeoman, do you know?
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I brought up the neighborhood zoning across the street, which is R20. I think the setbacks on R20, Mr. Berger, if you could correct me, I think the side setbacks are still 15 feet.
Yeah, I looked at that. They're the same as R40, so there's no difference.
So the side setbacks are the same. The fact that we have many areas in town where you look at it and you say, why was this zone this way when they did the rezoning and did the maps? Who knows? That's not going to change. I personally do feel that the topography here is unique. I think the slope, and I'm somewhat familiar with this because I looked at that big piece of that cape that has the big piece of land that is behind her house a few years back. And I mean, it's a slope that, as Peter had pointed out, that they tried to sell that land maybe 8 or 9 years ago because it was zoned residential multifamily, and they had it on the market for a long time, and no one was interested in it because of the slope of the land. So that cape rests on that acreage, which is quite a good sized lot. So I think, to my thinking, I think the hardship is unique. There's a tremendous slope on the back of these houses, and going down to Providence Road, I think the residential multifamily that she's in, I think was perhaps thought to set it up to originally accommodate multifamily along Providence Road, and that has been done. So I take exception with the thought, respectfully, that it is unique, and it is a hardship, and it's a land hardship rather than a big boulder in the way of her wanting to put the pool here. I think that the slope of the land really dictates where the pool should be placed. And so that's my thought on it.
Do we have any letters in opposition or in favor of this?
No, I've gotten none. The only two comments I got were from, I think, Board of Health and Fire, and they had no comments at all. Yeah, Board of Health and Fire had no comments at all.
And there's nobody out there right now waiting to speak?
I don't know. There are people out there. I don't know if they're to speak on this case. If anybody who is online as an attendee wants to speak on behalf of 25 Oak Street, please click the raise hand button so we can call on you. Nobody's raising their hand, so I don't think anyone on here is calling for this one.
Ms. Wennerstrom, were you expecting any comments from any abutters or anything?
No, I didn't request that anyone.
No, I didn't know if you had heard from any of them.
Oh, I know my neighbor Bernie really wants to use the pool and probably would have came if I offered it, but I didn't think to do that.
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the third requirement, in terms of the public good, I don't think this is, in any way could be considered detrimental, to the neighborhood, because as we've discussed, there's across the street, there's, similar homes with pools within these setbacks.
I agree with everything that Bill just said about the topography basically being a hardship. I think it's a hardship, and that's what each member has to ask themselves. Is it a hardship? I know the classic example is ledge, but we can always blast ledge, we can always hammer it. So is that even a hardship anymore? But this is when we all get to be lawyers and judges, because we each get a vote. It's only a swimming pool. Nobody cares except this poor lady.
My two kids care.
No, I mean, we all care.
I know that's got nothing to do with this.
I don't mean being heartless saying that.
Yeah,
I mean, it just, the world is going to keep going on if we approve this pool, so. And I don't think we're violating zoning.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I mean, I'm supportive of this as well. I just want to make sure we're not, exceeding what we should do, and we're not setting precedent for something that, would, force us into a situation later.
I was always told that each case had its own merit and one didn't affect another.
Yeah. All right, is there any further comment from anyone?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. We'll take a roll call vote on that, on closing the public hearing on case 881. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we have to develop the findings. Peter, you like this part.
Yeah, which I started to do.
Brian, I just emailed you and I'm sorry I forgot to do it earlier, the template sheet we use. So,
Yeah, I have it.
oh, okay,
Yeah, you said it. You had sent it to me previously. Thank you.
okay.
All right, so the first finding, this parcel is located in the residential multifamily or multiple family residential RMF zoning district.
It is a pre-existing. What year was the house built?
It was either 1850 or 1870. I'm not sure. I've seen it on a map as early as 1870. Old. It's old.
It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot and house.
Everything is pre-existing,
Yeah.
non-conforming. The garage, everything.
Yep.
Yeah, the front setback, definitely. All right.
And I think that the hardship is that the topography of the land behind the house drops from approximately a mark of 366 feet to 350 feet on an angle that makes it difficult to work with parallel construction. And that would require extensive shoring up and walls to protect the slopes. And the other thing, and I've had multiple pools, is that, we have a pool that's got, 40,000 gallons of water. And, you have to make sure that even though it's fiberglass, it still, gets pumped out and, the back flushing on it, et cetera, creates some drainage, and she has adequate drainage there on her own land to take the requirements from normal maintenance of a pool. So I think that the slope of the land, and I would make reference in the finding on the topography. And if you look at the map, it does drop from the 360, which is right behind her deck, 366, I think it is, to 350. So it's a fairly significant slope, and it's not a straight out and then flat. It's a slope that goes down, and as they've indicated, is on an angle. So it would make it more difficult. And Peter, I think, has better insights in that from a construction point of view.
So let's see. The RMF zoning district requires a 30-foot side setback. The proposed structure is, actually, I don't have the
New
revised plan. How far is it from the left, the revised plan?
I'll put it up.
Is it 28.4?
Yes.
Yes, 28.4 and 21.4 feet on one side.
There you go, Brian. I put it up on the screen.
Yeah. All right. So it requires a 30-foot side setback, the proposed structure would be 28.4 feet from the left side property line and 21.4 feet from the right side property line.
I've got it right here if I can give this to Katrina.
She has it up. She put it up on the screen. All right, so
Mr. Chair, I would reference whatever the reference is on that map, the identification on that map, the revised map that was sent to Katrina, a certified plot plan.
February 4th.
The other point I think that you made, Mr. Chairman, is that it certainly is not detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. There are others that have, that have pools. It's really totally a residential neighborhood. This just happens to be zone residential multifamily.
Yep. So yeah, it's what's the language I use? In harmony with the neighborhood.
I like that. That's a good legal term.
All right, the slope of the land, or the land,
Topography?
the land slopes steeply from front to back and left to right. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And those reference points I made are taken from the town's GIS system. When you overlay topography on that, and Katrina, if this were to pass, you can probably reference that topography map showing the change in elevation right behind this house where the pool is going to go. It's further identifying, the need to really shore up the areas to do a pool.
Okay. So based on the topography, all right, we'll leave that to be entered. All right. So do we need a motion before taking a vote?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request of Erica Winterstrom, 25 Oak Street. I don't have the case number in front of me.
881.
Oh, excuse me.
881.
Case number 881. Case number 881, that we grant the request for the construction of a 16 by 40 in-ground swimming pool where a 30-foot side setback is required. And the pool would be, the new numbers are 21.4 and 28.4, is that correct?
Correct.
Would be off the side setbacks, looking for relief. And the relief would be the difference between 30 feet. So you're talking what?
Would it be easier just to
8.8.
use Exhibit A?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
I don't mean
For
to butt
Exhibit
in,
A.
but
Exhibit A, and which she's going to have to come in, Katrina, and sign that. So that would be Exhibit A. So again, construction of the 16 by 40 in-ground swimming pool as where a 30-foot side setback is required, and the pool would be shown as indicated in Exhibit A dated such and such.
And just to clarify, can we refer to it as document 1.7, which is Katrina's reference for it? Right, I don't know if that's on there anywhere. But that's what it's, the file's name.
No, it's not. It's when I load it into the system, I give it a number, just so I keep track of things that have come in on each case. We could just say the certified plot plan that was revised, received on February 7th with the revision date of February 4th.
Okay. So Bill, do you want to say that again, or do you want me to restate it?
No, you can say it. You want me to restate it?
I'll do it. So entertain a motion to grant a variance.
I've made the motion.
Sorry,
I've made the motion.
I was just restating it.
Oh, okay.
So, well, the motion before us is to grant a variance on case number 881, which requires a 30-foot side setback. And it's asking for relief with a structure, 21.4 feet on one side and 28.4 feet on the other side within the side setback. Mr. Rogers, how do you vote?
I'm going to have to vote no, because the topography is only a hardship for this pool. It wouldn't be one for an above ground pool or a 16 by 30 pool. So unfortunately, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Yeoman, so I'm going to have to vote no.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
And Chairman votes yes. Motion made and passed. Or the motion passed. So let's see. So there's a 20-day appeal period. And after that expires, Katrina, do you want, hold on one second.
Yep, I'll tell her. So there's a
Okay.
20-day appeal period. On the 21st day, you need to come into the town clerk's office, pick up a certified copy of the no appeal, take it to the Worcester Registry of Deeds, have the decision filed with the Registry of Deeds, then bring a copy of that filing, all 3 or 4 pages back to me. It becomes part of the file, which then gets submitted to Mr. Berger for your building permit.
So 21 days from today's date?
No, so it's going to be 21 days from the day I file it with the
Okay.
Town clerk. So the board has 14 days to come in to sign the decision once I get it written up, and then we file it with the town clerk. So it could be up to 30 days, but I usually try to get it filed as quick as possible.
And did you need me to come in and sign the plot plan?
For
as
the
an-
Exhibit A, no, we haven't with the Zoom meetings for the past year. So I'll just mark it as Exhibit A and attach it.
Okay,
Okay?
very much. And thank you for all your help through this, Katrina. I'm learning
You're
as I
very
go.
welcome.
It's been wonderful. Am I all set?
All set. So good. Yep, all set. Thank you.
Good luck.
you. Great. Thanks.
I think we have to close this hearing, don't we, Katrina?
Yes, we do.
I
Yeah.
make a motion that we close this hearing.
Second.
I thought we closed it before we voted. No?
We close
We
the
have to close the
public.
case.
Oh,
We closed
okay.
the public input. Now we're closing the case itself.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. case 881 is closed. Let's see, so case number 876 for 244 Worcester Street. So
They
they
re-
asked for a continuance again?
Yes, they have continued their case with planning until the 28th of February, so that's planning's next meeting. So they have asked us to continue until our next hearing date. And before you pick that date, just to let you know, I have received 2 more cases in, so I need at least 3 weeks to get legal notices out for the 2 new cases that came in.
All right, so there a motion to continue the hearing, case number 876?
So moved.
A second. We need to pick a date, though. We have to move it to a date.
So we can't say just the next scheduled meeting?
No, if people are listening, they're gonna wanna know what the date is, so we have to pick a date and time.
So a Thursday is on March 10th, 17th, or the 24th?
24 is no for me.
7, you want to say the 10th?
I can't do the 10th.
Actually, I'm mistaken. The 17th is a no for me. St.
How about-
Patrick's Day. I'm an Irishman. It's a national holiday. Come on. No, but 17th is a no for me.
All right, how about the 24th?
24th would be okay.
24th is okay for me too.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it works for me too.
Yeah, I'm good on the 24th.
I'm fine.
Natalie,
I'm by me.
you're good on the 24th?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so who made the motions? Yeomans?
well, we need to,
Oh,
we need a motion to continue case 876 for 244 Worcester Street to the next meeting on March 24th, 2020.
Mary Ann made that motion.
Yeah.
oh, Mary Ann, okay. Thank you,
I seconded it.
thank you.
Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes,
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
all right. Case 876 is continued to March 24th. Let's see. Do we have anyone for case 880?
I don't know, let me. Scott Morrison. All right, so someone has their hand up, hold on. All right,
Okay, my name is Attorney Philip Stoddard. I'm here for Scott Morrison.
okay. So you're here for case 880, 45 Creeper Hill Road?
That's right.
Okay, and I'm sorry, your name is?
Attorney Philip Stoddard, Stoddard.
That's right. He did send a letter in on your behalf to be able to speak on his behalf.
Sure.
Oh,
you have a hand up, Katrina.
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, okay.
Am I being viewed by you, or is that working?
No, we only have your voice, so, but that's
Okay.
okay.
It might be good for me, so we'll keep it that way.
And I'm sorry, your name again, sir? I know I have it in my files.
Yeah, no problem. Philip, Philip Stoddard, Stoddard.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
all right. So sorry to keep asking this. Do we need to move to reopen the hearing on this? Or it was continued, so we just proceed on?
Yeah, you could just, as chairman, you're saying you're reopening it, and we don't need to read the rules, we don't need to do the
Yep.
legal, just probably hand it over to the applicant. But Mr. Chairman, before we proceed, I just a quick point of order. I'm going to ask that I be, I'm not going to recuse myself in the case of work emergency going on. And I don't know that I can give this case or much of any medical attention. So I think it would be better that somebody else be appointed as a voting member in my place for this case this evening.
Okay, no problem. We'll appoint Mr. Adams as a voting member for case 880. All right.
And if you see me just drop away, then I've left the meeting, and the secretary can note that accordingly. But I'll stay and try to help us.
All right. All right. So, on case 880, you can take it away. I was going to make you say your name again, but I know it's your daughter.
No trouble. All right. So on the January agenda, we continued to today and requested a conference with Robert Berger, and he enlightened us as to exactly what we were requesting a variance from. Your zoning bylaws 3.3.3.4 require 10 feet of stabilized vegetated area between the driveway and the boundary of the property. In this case, because of the both topography and soil conditions through the lot and then into the easement, we cannot go into our lot from the easement in a perpendicular fashion, which would exempt us from the 10-foot buffer area. We have 8 feet, not 10. So we can provide 8 feet of vegetated stabilized area, not 10, and we're requesting a variance from 3.3.3.4 to allow us to construct a driveway, build a house with that variance.
Okay.
The driveway I talked about not entering perpendicular, and that's basically the gist of the situation, and the variance we're requesting is obviously from 3.3.3.4. I can expand on hardship and the like if you like me to do that now, or I can address that later.
Yeah, I mean, if you could talk to I think the topography, I think we discussed at our
the
prior meeting on this, but in terms of the soil condition,
right?
Could you speak to that?
I can. The soil condition at 45 Creeper Road is and Scott Morrison happens to be an environmental engineer, so he knows as well, is Freetown murky soil. So it's very wet, and this particular area runs through a flood zone and difficult soil conditions, and the topography is very steep. So those are our issues. This is the only practical way to get into the property, and an easement was created to allow this back in 1987, which was recorded, and the butter bought subject to. The topography goes from 374 feet and drops to 366 within the first part of the driveway, the easement, and without allowing, thereby not allowing us to go into the lot perpendicular, and again, thus the need for the variance.
And what was the term for that soil?
Murky. Freetown murky soil.
Freetown? Is that what you said?
That's what he says. Yep, Freetown murky soil. These are both wetland soils and murky. Poor soils can be avoided by utilizing the easement and the plans that were submitted.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Yeomans.
To the applicant, if I may.
Sure.
This has gone before the Conservation Commission,
Correct.
and they have reviewed it and approved.
That is correct. We have an order of conditions.
Okay. So in looking at this, it seems as though that this variance, if it were to be granted, would cause less of an impact environmentally to the area than if the right-of-way was exercised.
That is absolutely correct. We are entering our lot through existing frontage, not through the easement. But by using the easement and re-entering the lot, we've avoided substantial wetland impacts as well as clearing. And again, the very likelihood that the topography would prohibit any driveway from going there in any event.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Adams.
a question for the applicant. There's a 25-foot no disturb zone and just off the property line, and you'll have to use the big plan to see this. The water line, the driveway, and the slope that they're creating is in the 25-foot no disturb zone. How are you going to do that with conservation?
We already have. We've got an order of conditions.
We didn't get that. They said you can go into the 25-foot no disturb zone?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. And
I have never heard of that.
Well, let me show you what I can read you what we have.
Scott,
Give me
can you
1 minute.
could you email that to me? Or Philip, is there any way you could email that to me, or do you have it on the screen where I could allow you to share it?
Yes, we just changed over our internet service and not much is working here right now. So I apologize, I cannot.
All right.
But the Grafton Conservation Commission on November 30th says enclosed, please find your approved order of conditions with Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And it keeps going. So that is the date it was allowed. And that's the cover letter I'm referring to.
Are those posted online?
No, I tried to get it today. I did not know that the conservation had voted on it and written the order conditions. I did email Leah and Jan to try to get a copy of it, and I got no response. So I can get that hopefully tomorrow. They've been out of the office because they've been redoing their office this week, but I can email them and try and get a copy of it tomorrow.
Approved conditions with special conditions, order conditions with special conditions. But once again, Scott, this is Scott's business, so he's well aware what he needs to do and how to do it.
If he did that, he's pretty good.
He is pretty good. I've worked with him many times.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rogers.
I believe there's a participant with their hand up. I don't know if you see that.
That's Philip, who we're talking to.
Oh, okay.
I can speak to the prerequisites to granting a variance. And clearly the hardship exists based upon topography and soil conditions, flood zone, wetlands. So I don't think there's any doubt with that. This situation is unique to this lot. There's no other lots in this neighborhood that require this type of relief. They all enter through their frontage and have no problem with topography or wetlands. There's no detriment to the public good because it's just going to be a single family home. And once again, we're asking for 2 feet less of stabilized vegetation area than the bylaw required. Instead of 10, we're giving 8. And it clearly would not substantially take away from the purpose of the bylaw, which is the 10 foot instead of 8 foot vegetated area.
Are there any other comments from the board?
The plan shows the driveway's 10 feet wide. I read someplace it's 12. Which one is it?
My notes say 12. 12-foot wide, centered within the easement, allowing for 8 feet of vegetated area along the property line.
Do you know why this lot is assessed for what it is by the town? Is it because of the wetlands or?
I have no idea. How's it assessed?
It's assessed at 20,000. I've never seen a lot, 21,000. I've never seen a lot assessed at 21,000.
Well, I don't know. But if we get a variance, I'm sure it's going to be worth more.
All right. So what zoning district is this?
R40, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. All right.
And that,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, that is so noted on the new plan, the original plan that they brought forth. They had said that it was multifamily, I believe, and it was, they've corrected it, so the new plan has the correction for zoning on it.
Scott said he did make some changes to comply with your requests and correction.
Okay. So let me see.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have the conservation stuff in our packet. I didn't realize it.
I didn't see that.
Perhaps that was in the packet from the last meeting.
Oh, it was from November.
Yeah, it's November 30th, the order, the letter for the order of conditions.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Berger.
did the applicant say that this driveway was in the flood zone?
It is not in the flood zone. We're avoiding the flood zone.
So what I was trying to understand here was what exactly is the variance?
It took me a while to understand that too. Under 3.3.3.4, there's a requirement of a 10-foot stabilized vegetation landscaping area. If we went in perpendicular, Mr. Berger was good enough to educate us, we'd be exempt because under that bylaw, walkways, entrances, and exits don't require that type of buffer. We can't go in a perpendicular fashion, therefore we can only provide 8 feet of that vegetated stabilized buffer.
Mr. Chair,
Berger.
Katrina, can you pull up the map again? I lost my mouse. All right, I'm gonna take the screen for a second, Katrina. When you let me. No, no, all right, I wanted to take the screen first.
Go ahead.
I can't, you have to stop the share.
Oh,
Okay. And now I'm asking you for permission. The host has to do that.
oh. There you go.
Is the bylaw that we're talking about not less than 10 feet around the property? Minimum setback, whichever is less for stabilization, for vegetation, landscaping. Only for cut-throughs, for walkways, entrances, and exits as permitted. And the common driveway. So this is for everything. This is for your walkways and your driveways, okay? So I just wanted everybody to see that bylaw first. Now,
So it's not
Katrina,
specific to any zoning district.
this is all of them.
Yep.
This is all of them. So I'm gonna stop the share, and then Katrina, pull that map up for me again, please. And make it bigger, please. That's good right there. Excellent. Okay, so in our bylaws, you have to enter your property through your legal frontage, which they're doing right here. Well, I'm moving my mouse, but you can't see it, but Katrina's doing a good job. Then they leave their property because their property line is that big dark line, which Katrina's showing you. And then they're going into their neighbor's property, and in between the driveway and the property line where it's dark hash, yep, right, that right there, that has to maintain 10 feet as per 3334. And if they were riding that line, that would be in violation. If they were out another 2 feet, then they would not need the variance. And then they're allowed to cut back in. And I'm not going to, split hairs with, well, you're coming in at an angle. I'm not going there. But then they have to maintain the 10 feet on the other side, which is their property, where Katrina is showing you that they have to maintain that 10 feet. That's the variance that they're going for if they can't maintain that 10 feet.
That's correct. And we have 8 feet, not 10.
I understand, but I wanted to go through this with
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, do you understand the variance that they're requesting now?
So,
I believe
Mr.
so.
Chairman?
So assuming the easement, the hash line, they're 8 feet away instead of 10 feet away from that at that first slight corner. Is that
I don't know what you're saying.
so? Where's the other side of the easement?
Right here.
Is it that angled one there, or is it the next angled one, or the next hash line up? Or actually the garage. Okay, I see what you mean. So it cuts behind that garage. Yep.
Yep, right here.
Okay.
But Mr. Chair, as the zoning enforcement officer, I don't care about the easement. I just care how the driveway complies or doesn't comply with the bylaw.
Yep.
And I think
Very clear.
I think Bill had his hand up.
Sorry, who did?
Bill.
Or was it Mr. McCusker?
Yeah, so, I think the request is a variance granting 2 feet of relief from section 334, or 3334. I think that's what the variance is. It's just, there's a 10-foot requirement, they want 2 feet of relief from that, so it's, grant a variance from section 334 to allow for an 8-foot buffer instead of a 10-foot buffer, or something along those lines. In case, if we end up granting this variance, I think it could be extremely important that we finding, or maybe even more, that calls out those specific soil condition issues. And I think it's the topography should also be mentioned. The applicant mentioned he gave some heights, but there's some very steep gradients there. So I think we should have findings in the soil conditions and also mention the steep topography. Thank you.
I think those are both very relevant.
So who had the drop-off numbers there, or the elevation drop?
I did. I have them in notes from Scott.
And okay, can you?
I can do it.
Those off?
The road topography, the roadway is at elevation 374 feet and drops to 366 within the easement. Therefore, there's an 8-foot drop in the first section of the driveway. In order to...
And what's that first section of the driveway mean?
Right off the road, I would
up until that first
section
corner?
of the driveway, yeah. And let's see. Therefore, an 8-foot drop in the first section of driveway. To keep the driveway within the lot, not use the easement, would be impossible because it goes from 374 feet to 356 feet in the lot, 16-foot grade change, which would make it all but impractical or impossible to put a driveway in that situation, given the wetlands and poor soils also.
Can you, that second set of numbers, can you just read those again?
Sure. Let's see. If you were to keep the driveway on the lot and not use the easement, there would be a drop of 374 at the road elevation with 558 on the lot. So by using the easement, he's able to soften the grade in a big way, the topography.
I think it was 374 to 358 was the drop, I believe, right? 16
Yes.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Who will maintain the slopes that are made with the riprap?
He's responsible for that. He's the easement holder and absolutely his responsibility.
Forever?
Well, it's whoever when he sells, then it would be the new owner. Clearly, it's their responsibility. It's their property. And against conservation is, I'm sure, dealt with that in their order of conditions.
Now, I realize it has a guardrail everywhere that it's really steep because it's a 1-to-1, which is almost up and down. But the next door neighbor that owns the land doesn't have to maintain that.
Does not. And if you want, that could be a condition of the variance, absolutely.
I mean, if the thing slides away, they have to put the rocks back.
Absolutely.
Okay. It happened on Pine Street in Shrewsbury, but it was a lot higher banking, but it was a 1-to-1 and it let go.
Sure. No, he's building it. He needs to maintain it and keep it in sound fashion. And his predecessors entitled would have that same responsibility. Successors entitled, excuse me.
All right, so let's see. For I'm just looking at the findings here. So zoning bylaw 3.3.3.4 requires 10 feet. I'll get that language. The proposed driveway needs 2 feet of relief. All right. Conservation Commission has granted, sorry, what's that called?
Order of conditions.
All right. All right, I'll clean those up later. Is there any additional feedback from the board? All right. So at this time, I'd ask the applicant, would you like to close the hearing and have the board vote on this time?
If there's any other concerns or questions that any member has, I'd love to address them before we did that.
And also you have to see if there's anyone in the public who's listening who wants to make any comments before we close.
Okay.
Or make any
Yeah,
votes.
I was looking, oh, sorry. I had the wrong list up. Is there anyone online that would like to comment on 45 Creeper Hill Road, case number 880? Henry Lane?
Yes, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Henry. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, please state your name and your address.
My name is Henry Lane, and my address is 100 Main Street in Whitensville, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I'm here tonight on behalf of Katie Mason, the abutter to the north of the property. And we do have a few comments. Obviously, I wouldn't be here unless we were opposed to the grant of this variance. So there's no surprise there. Let me just start with the general comments. First of all, with respect to the request for a variance. The representation has been that you're looking for a 2-foot variance from a 10-foot setback requirement. But if you look at it closely, it's considerably more than that. In fact, they're looking for essentially 2 variances. A 10-foot variant, well, about a 10-foot variance on the Mason side of the property line, and also a 10-foot variance on the applicant's side of the line. Because the bylaw requires that you have a vegetated or landscaped buffer. And as I look at the plan, I see on both sides of the driveway, there is a considerable amount of riprap, with the northerly section of riprap being about a 5-foot elevation drop and the southerly section being about a 10-foot elevation drop. And I don't know how you define vegetation and landscaping, but in my common definition of that, that does not include a 10-foot riprap wall. I don't think that's what the bylaw contemplated when it decided it wanted a 10-foot vegetated buffer along property lines. So what you're really looking for is two variances, one on the applicant's property, one on Ms. Mason's property. And frankly, Ms. Mason's not interested in having a variance on her property. They're essentially asking to create a zoning violation on the Mason property. And, you know, the typical proposition is that you want a variance on somebody's property, you have to have the owner's consent. And the applicant does not have the owner's consent to request a variance on her property. So that's to start with. You need two variances, and you need two 10-foot variances, not a 2-foot variance. Secondly, there's no real hardship here. If you look back in the history, and unfortunately, you know, not being there in person, I can't show you the original subdivision plan of this property. Perhaps the secretary can put that on the screen. But if you look at the property, this was a lot that was created in the late 80s out of about a 5 or 6 acre parcel of land. And by using some very creative surveying techniques, they managed to create 4 buildable lots out of that 5 acre parcel and 1 unbuildable lot, which is the lot that's in question here. So they really maximized what they were able to get, and they left this last 2.5 acre lot clearly because it was unbuildable under the circumstances at the time. And that's why it's been vacant for 35 years. And that's why it's been assessed for $21,000. Now, I don't fault anyone trying to make a couple of dollars and trying to make this unbuildable lot into a buildable lot, but through creative engineering, but it shouldn't be done at the expense of the neighbor. Now, when you look at, so in anyway, just to make that a little more clear, they, as I said, they maximized what they had there. They created this unbuildable lot, and the zoning with respect to the side lot vegetated setback was already in place. So they, at that point, it was already an unbuildable lot. So to the extent that they have a hardship, it was a hardship that they created themselves. They could have easily reorganized or cut this property into lots in a different configuration, used the frontage in a different way. There's lots of things they could have done, but in fact, they decided to try to maximize what they could get out of it, and left this lot in violation of zoning. So, you know, that's their own creation. And typically, you know, we take the position that we don't give variances for people who create their own hardships. They could have incorporated this land into the other 4 lots very easily, made some very attractive lots. In fact, if you look at the way the lots were cut up, Miss Mason's lot comes in at a very strange angle because of that attempt to maximize the utility of the land. And again, that's their business. But when they left that unbuildable lot because of the way they cut up the 5 or 6 acre lot that they have, it was their own decision. And it doesn't create a hardship that satisfies the requirements for the grant of a variance. Now, and most importantly, from the neighbor's point of view, you know, the requirement is that it not be that the variance granted, if a variance is granted, it does not create a detriment to the neighborhood. But in fact, you're asking Miss Mason to host 2 giant riprap walls and create this, what can only be called a hazard on her property, as well as an eyesore. Now, again, with creative engineering, they've been able to engineer a driveway, which I think previously was indicated is about an 8-foot drop from the road. So it immediately dropped 8 feet. And you're looking at a riprap wall on both sides. It's essentially an industrial kind of look, because you're looking at just stone walls or riprap walls on both sides. And as I indicated, it really creates a hazard. I mean, most of that wall area is on her property. Admittedly, there's an easement. Well, I shouldn't even say that because I'm not conceding there is an easement. I think if you look at the actual document, and I don't know if Mr. Stoddard has looked at the actual document, the document does not actually create an easement over Miss Mason's property. It creates an easement along Creeper Hill Road. Doesn't say anything about an easement on Miss Mason's lot, but that's a legal argument we can fight out, at some later date. But in fact, the construction is on her property, and it's an eyesore as well as a safety hazard. The bylaw specifically suggests that there's going to be a 10-foot vegetated buffer on both sides of the property line because each lot has to comply separately. So essentially, the bylaw requires a 20-foot vegetated buffer between properties, and basically they're asking to eliminate that essentially entirely. There is not going to be at the street level, there's going to be no vegetated buffer on either side of the property line. So there's no way to describe this as not derogating from the requirements of the bylaw, and there's no way to suggest that this does not impair the Mason property. I can't imagine that any one of you want to have a situation where next to your house is a 5-foot riprap wall, a 12-foot driveway, and another 10-foot high riprap wall. If you have kids, you want your kids having that in their front lawn? I can't imagine it. And as somebody indicated earlier, how is that going to be stabilized? What happens when something goes wrong? Sure, they have an obligation. Who's going to enforce that obligation? Is the town going to enforce the obligation that those riprap walls be maintained? Of course they're not going to do that. That's going to be a burden on the Mason property. It's just an untenable situation. As I said, I don't deny anybody the right to try to make a couple of dollars, but they shouldn't be allowed to do that at the expense of a neighbor and basically by obliterating the requirements of the bylaw that are intended to provide a buffer and protection to your neighbors. And you're essentially eliminating that if you grant a variance. So at this point, all I can say is that this does not meet the criteria as a hardship because it was self-created. It's an enormous detriment and a safety hazard to the Mason property and should be denied.
If I could, please. Okay. You suggest that you need the vegetated area on the Mason property. They have no entrance, egress, driveway on that property. They would not need to put a 10-foot buffer there. That's the applicant's obligation on his property. So I disagree with you there. I look at the plans and I see easements on the plans, and I see that your client bought subject to those easements. They also have a garage within the easement area, which we would hoping to work with you on to make that right. But clearly the plans show an easement. She bought subject to the easement. I don't see how you can suggest otherwise.
Have you read the easement?
I have.
And does it say you have an easement on our property?
I don't have it in front of me, but that's my recollection.
My copy says you have an easement along Creeper Hill Road. It says nothing about an easement on the Mason property.
What about the plans?
What about the plan? Plans don't create rights.
Well, they should show the easement area and who's subject to it.
Yeah, it only creates an easement if you give an easement in a recorded document. Your document does not include an easement in that driveway.
I think at this time, I'd like to request a continuance, have Scott Morrison here who can address his riprap issues and stabilization. He's an engineer, I'm not, and I will further review the easement and address Mr. Attorney Lane's concerns. Hello?
Brian, you're muted.
Sorry. Can the holder of an easement be granted a variance on that easement, or does it have to be the landowner?
We have an easement which gives us rights in the land to for a driveway. That's the express reason, and we're asking for relief from the setback of the buffered zone from our driveway. I don't think that's a problem.
I mean, I just haven't come across it before. easement holder be granted a variance on that easement.
I can research that for the next meeting if you like.
Mr.
Bob,
Chair,
you happen to know?
what I suggest is you write a email to Katrina, and that can be forwarded off to town council, and we can get that question answered for you.
Thank you.
We'll do that. But I'd be interested in, Mr. Stoddard, your view on that for the continued hearing on this.
I will. I'll research that for you and have an opinion.
All right. So at this time, can I have a motion to continue the hearing on case number 880 for 45 Creeper Hill Road?
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Rogers,
yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
yes.
Chairman votes yes. Case number 880 is continued to our meeting on March 24th.
March 4th?
March 24th.
March 24th.
And Mr. Lane, on behalf of Ms. Dixon, you're welcome to submit any written materials regarding your position.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is Adams Road. I don't recall what this.
So I think Bill wanted to talk about the status on it. There was a meeting yesterday. No. Yes, yesterday. He is submitting his petition to have the roads accepted at Springtown meeting. Chris is currently reviewing the submission he's done to make sure everything is there and sending out a memo to make sure everything is fine. There are still 3 building permits to be issued, and I will talk to Bob about those tomorrow. 2 affordable houses are still left to be built, and 1 market rate is still left to be built. They had negotiated in good faith with Nancy Piccone regarding her flooding issue. And she basically has refused everything they've offered. So at this point, I think it was left, let me see my notes from yesterday. I think it was left, we gotta wait for the memo from Chris and find out why Bob hasn't issued the last 3 building permits and get those going. And then they wanna bring it to town meeting in spring, I believe. So that was the status of that. I don't know what else Bill wanted to discuss, so I don't know if you want to table this to the meeting on the 24th. I don't know, but that was the synopsis of the meeting from yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, I would say we just add that to the agenda for the March 24th meeting.
Okay.
So we can just quickly review the minutes. I had one change. It's on page 2.
Up on the screen, please.
Yeah, give me a sec.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Katrina, I have one change.
Okay. What's the change?
On the second page,
Yep,
where, with the discussion on Fisherville Terrace,
yep,
towards the bottom, motion made by Mr. McCusker
yep.
and seconded. I would like to add in there, no waiver had been sought, had been previously sought or granted on the comprehensive permit when it was initially approved. We had a discussion at that point on, you know, there was no waiver sought during the comprehensive permit hearing.
Okay,
And the change I had was the paragraph right above, or I guess 2 paragraphs above that.
okay,
The last sentence where it says, Mr. McCusker also informs everyone with the list of violations.
oh, yep,
Just change that wording to say, Mr. McCusker states or opines.
okay.
It sounds like he's saying a fact. I mean, I think
I get what you're saying.
we
Yep,
agreed with that opinion, but
yep. Okay. States or outlines issues up at the site. Okay,
let's see. So with those, anyone else have changes?
Yeah, on page 2,
yeah,
the 5th paragraph down in the, under Fisherville Terrace, on a roll
Yep.
call appears twice.
Oh, okay.
who appears twice? Wait a minute.
The sentence, on a roll call vote, on a roll call vote.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Just delete that, that's all.
Yep.
That's all.
it's because I cut and paste, sorry.
No worries.
No, and actually, under Providence Road Commons, that one too has it twice.
Okay, again, because
I think that's where you copied it from.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, got it.
So if there's no further changes, can we have a motion to accept the minutes from the January 6, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Right. Roll call vote, Mr. Rogers,
yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. We won't appoint a alternate to vote on the minutes. We can do it by majority. All right.
So before we adjourn, for the 4 members, I will have the Mylar set up in conference room G, starting tomorrow morning for you guys to come in and sign. We close at 1 tomorrow, and then we're open 8:30 to 4:30 Monday, 8:30 to 7 on Tuesday, and 8:30 to 4:30 on Wednesday. And then Thursday, you could come in too. So just let me know if you're gonna come by. If I'm not here, the pens and everything will be up there for you guys to sign them. And I'll let Bill McCusker know that they're ready to sign. I'll get them up there tomorrow morning.
All right. And what time do you think they'll be there tomorrow morning?
Um,
I may
I'll
swing
be-
on Monday.
Well, no, I'll be in at 8 o'clock, so I'll do them first thing as soon as I get in.
Okay.
I just couldn't do it today because Historical Commission was up there and had a meeting tonight. So I didn't want to leave them out. Not that they would do anything, but I just didn't want
Yeah.
to leave them out. I didn't know how much of a space they were going to. It's 35 pages, so I got to lay them out pretty clearly for you guys.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's not for me to sign, right?
No,
Yeah, okay.
All right. So if no one has anything further, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second, that motion.
All right. Mr. Rogers, how do you vote? Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Biswas?
Yes.
All right, everybody's in unanimous agreement. See everyone on March 24th.